What's going on, everybody? My name is Nick.
My name is Dave.
And this is the Deep Dive, and we are still in our series of this Everything in Between. And today we're talking through your sermon that you preached on Sunday called Lost and Found. Are you ready to get into this?
I am.
Yeah?
Let's do it.
Let's just jump in. Let's
All
go.
right.
Well, Dave, I know that we are in a season where everything's coming back to life and, trees are blooming, pollen is everywhere, but I'm feeling a little dead inside because of my Braves.
Yeah, they haven't gotten off to a good start.
It's been rough.
It's been
0-5. Our big signing in the offseason got hit with a suspension for 80 games, can't play in the playoffs this year. I'm feeling a little down, I'm not going to lie.
Well, sorry about that. I'm sorry about that, but it's spring break week around
It is
here.
spring break
a lot
week,
of stuff going on. A lot of the kids out of school. Your kids are out of school.
Yep.
Yeah, so that stuff. And it's a big week for us. On Sunday, I'll go ahead and mention part of our service, if you were there, was I baptized my granddaughter.
Yay.
Which was a very special moment for me. But Anna is moving to Cherokee County this week. They're closing on the house even as we're speaking here. It's on a Tuesday. And moving on Thursday, physically moving on Thursday. So that's going to be a kind of a new era for us here.
Yeah.
All kind of local. And so I'm excited to see what that brings. And Easter is just around the corner.
Literally.
We got one more week. And so kind of
Two more weeks, right?
Well, we got the rest of this week.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, one more
and then
full week.
and then Holy Week is here. So
yeah.
So but we did continue in this message series, and if you're not familiar with it, it's called Everything in Between, and then each week there are two words, and sometimes they can kind of be a polarity. Lost and found, I guess, is a polarity, even though we use that language a lot in the church. We're talking about lost people and that sort of thing. But I started off by talking about just losing things because we're all familiar with losing things. And I kind of threw out to the congregation, what kind of things do you lose? Eyeglasses,
Wallets, keys.
Cell phones. I've got this little thing I showed in church, where I can do.
Yep.
Aha. So yeah, that's
Beautiful things about the Apple Watches.
That's big. It's a big time saver. All that, but losing something really important. Have you ever lost something really important?
Yeah, I lost my wedding ring.
Okay.
Still haven't found it actually.
Still found it.
That's why I wear these silicone ones. I still haven't found it.
Okay.
I think it's gone. I think it got eaten by something.
Yeah. I lost my wedding ring one time too.
Yeah.
I was actually, Teresa was with me, and I was like, I had lost some weight at the time, and I was like slinging my hands. Look, I was lost, and like my wedding ring slung off and went down this hill into some grass. We were out walking, and we looked and looked and looked and never found it. So that was tough. But I talked about losing my passport.
Ooh.
And I lost my passport when I was in Honduras.
That's not good.
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. And I was the preacher, and we were on this mission trip with, last day I went to look for it, couldn't find it, where I'd put it, which was in this little Ziploc thing that was on my toiletry bag. We got back to the hotel, and tore through everything Teresa and I did, and couldn't find it, so I just assumed it had probably been stolen, which was a bad thing to think. And so the group had to leave and go, and I was going to the embassy, the next morning to try to
get out of there,
get a passport to get out of here. And so I went down to breakfast, came back up, did that Ziploc thing to get my tooth, and it was there. I still have no explanation because we had looked repeatedly.
In the same spot.
And we looked everywhere, but like in the same spot. And, so.
That is weird.
But yeah, and then I was pretty joyous because I'd found it, so all that stuff. So, but anyway, so losing things that are important, we lose things all the time.
Yeah.
Lots of things that aren't important, although when you need that cell phone or those car keys, it's important. But it's a parable that Jesus told, and I guess I should say it was a series of parables. But what preempted it was the Pharisees and the scribes were complaining about Jesus, saying that he was eating with sinners and hanging out with tax collectors and, undesirables and that sort of thing. And so Jesus told actually 3 parables in a row. We only worked on the first one. He tells a story about a lost sheep. Then he talks about a lost coin, and then he has the lost son, the prodigal son. But we were only looking at the lost sheep this week. And so we kind of walked through and unpacked that. There's a shepherd that had 100 sheep, and he lost one of them. And he leaves the 99 in the wilderness to go looking for the one. And when he finds it, he rejoices. He lifts it up, and he carries it back home, and he tells his neighbors, come rejoice with me.
Yeah.
My sheep that was lost, I found. And there's, just the joy that's there. And so a couple of things that I unpacked and talked about was that there's different kinds of lostness. Who was really lost in this story? It's easy to say, okay, if he's using this as a metaphor, then the Pharisees and, those religious people were the found ones, and, the people outside of that, the tax collectors, whatever, those are the lost. And maybe that's what he was referring to. That's a perfectly fine, reasonable explanation of the parable. But I think also that what we could miss is that we all have some degree of lostness.
Yeah.
We all lose our way, on our Christian journey.
Or we were all once that lost one that had to be found.
We once were, but we all have like, and I use the example, like, who is more lost? Like 2 students, okay? You got one who's a know-it-all. He feels like he's got the thing down. He doesn't realize what parts of maybe the curriculum that he is missing. And so he comes into the exam with all this confidence and bombs it. Or you've got another student who realizes he's lost. He needs help. He gets a tutor and all that. Who is more lost, that? Or within the context of a church, is it the old-time church member who's been there for years and years and years, who knows all the language, who knows everything, yet doesn't really exhibit a lot of fruit or grace or that sort of patience.
Doesn't live it outside the building or something like that.
That kind of thing. Or the seeker who is coming is not even really sure they believe yet, but they're trying to discern. And they're recognizing, that they need something. So, I think we on this continuum find ourselves at different points on this at different times. And like a sheep, the way the sheep would get lost is, it would like eat a little bit here and eat a little bit there, and then suddenly it's lost.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we can get distracted along the way and have a degree of lostness too. And so we ought to have a lot more mercy and kindness with those who don't. And then the response of the shepherd, he doesn't scold the sheep and say, "You bad sheep, you've been lost," stuff. He rejoices. He lifts the sheep up.
Yeah.
He throws a party, because he's found his sheep. And that also should, I think, be sort of an example for us with how we think about people. Because within the confines of the church, we sometimes use that language. We are the ones who found. We'll draw the circle around us. And all those people out there who are different than us, they're lost.
Yeah. And
the lostness is just affirming our worth that God loves us and hasn't given up on us and is searching for us.
Why, and this is maybe, I don't know if you talked about this or not, but why do you think we have a tendency to want to label people that way as opposed to treating them like they're more of like just somebody that we want to help tell the message to and bring back? Does it make sense?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's easy language for us, and it makes us feel like we're insiders or whatever. I don't find it very helpful. I might even find myself using it from time to time, but I mean, it can't be very attractive to somebody that we're trying to reach to say that, hey, you're lost.
Yeah.
So, maybe it's just people who, haven't been found yet, or maybe, it's normal people.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we can slide into a lot of judgment, and sometimes there are whole communities and whole groups of people that we just got completely discounted. They're lost, and they're just people just like us that God loves and that need Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That is something I've always kind of felt weird about as like people would be like, yes, I acknowledge I'm a sinner, but if I'm coming in to meet somebody for the first time or talk to them, the last thing I want to be told is like, you're wrong about everything or whatever. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like to more
Yeah.
meet somebody like, hey, I understand that this is your understanding. Can I show you a better way? Like
Sure.
that's the way I've always tried to present Jesus, the gospel, whatever, as opposed to being like, you're just a terrible sinner and you need Jesus. And it's like, well, yeah, I am a sinner. I too am a sinner. You know what I mean? But I've never felt like that was effective
Yeah.
communication.
The prevenient grace of that believing that God is there even before we are.
Yeah.
And so God is at work in whatever way in people. And so I don't know. It's just an easy thing to do. It's just an easy thing to, and the church is terrible about this, about drawing a tight little circle around us. And we are the insiders. And then everybody that's different from us, that's outsider who believes differently or, looks different sometimes. They're the ones, the outsiders are the lost. So
Yeah.
I don't think that language is particularly helpful. But it's language that we know real well because we use it all the time. I don't think it helps us where this week we're talking about righteousness and mercy. And so I don't think it really helps us be very merciful when we, already kind of condemned a person by, because they don't see it exactly like we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just hard to tell somebody how valuable they are by starting off with, here's where you fail. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because, I mean, there is a need for repentance.
Sure,
There is
I
a
agree.
need for, or recognizing our own sin and stuff. But, I think that, we are to bear fruit, not be the fruit inspectors.
Yes.
Maybe. So when we like being the fruit inspectors,
Yeah.
but it is, we in the church, I think too often fall prey into just, having our own little club and, being judgmental of those who aren't in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so lost and found, and realizing that in the story there's some decree. He's telling this for the Pharisees and the Sadducees. There's the teachers of the law or whatever. Because they were seeing the kinds of people that Jesus was hanging out with. It's interesting that tax collectors are mentioned specifically there. Tax collectors get a bad rap throughout the gospel.
For sure.
And there's a reason, because, in that day, Rome would sort of appoint somebody or hire somebody that was a local to do that job, to be the tax collector. And then they kind of put them working on commission. So they were kind of thought of as double crossers, or, the lowest of the low, they kind of, deserted their own people for that. Because the Jews were taxed terribly. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard 50% tax rate or something horrible.
Yeah.
There was a tax on everything. So, this may be a short one today, but, lost and found, it's pretty, we once were lost and now we're found.
Yeah.
And so I think as they're recognizing that within our own selves, but also having grace and realizing that Jesus, ate with those that everybody else deemed sinners and, inappropriate for him to be hanging out with.
Yeah.
Those seem to be the people he was drawn to.
Yeah, but I do think it's still a good call to us to kind of, I read an author one time called it Christian cocooning, is to get outside of that cocoon that we sometimes set for ourselves and our little communities, but to recognize that, like, if Jesus was willing to go be with the least, the last, the lost, all that stuff, as, in the biblical terminology, then we should be as well, and what are, for us in this Hickory Flat community, how are we meeting the needs of those around us? How are we going and being with the people in our community, whether it's, it might not be going to the synagogues or stuff like that. It might be going to the local football game and being a kind presence there, or showing up at one of these 5Ks that are going on in our community, handing out water, or it could just be going to a restaurant and meeting somebody new who might be at the bar or whatever. Like, I think finding those ways to just be a hand into our community that are well outside of these doors is kind of what this is calling us to as well.
And I think, the old song, they'll know we are Christians by our love, not by what church we belong to, or, not by what we say, but how we love.
How we live it.
And so, as we look ahead in just a couple of weeks to Holy Week and Maundy Thursday, and remembering that Jesus himself washed the disciples' feet and gave that as an example. And so how we serve and love others is how they know of our love. And probably not the things the negative things that we might call them, is probably not helping them to understand the gospel of love and grace and forgiveness and acceptance. Our lostness, their lostness, affirms the self-worth that God hasn't given us, that God's out there searching and looking and loving us wherever we are on our journey.
And I think that's the beautiful thing about this Lenten season is you kind of think about the life Jesus lived, and you saw how he did it. And, we tend to focus on the Easter, which is important, but also the way he lived his life and how we can also live our lives in a similar fashion.
And not getting it too far ahead, but like this week, it's interesting. We've had the overlap of this series is sort of stacked on top of each other. This week we move into righteousness and mercy, and those are the two words. And those can become more of a polarity, because we seem to be, we seem to be really interested in righteousness when it applies to somebody else. And we seem to be real interested in mercy when it's more personal to us. And so, how Jesus exhibited that and showed mercy and the transformation that being merciful to somebody could be. And so I think, sometimes within our judgment, when we go back thinking about lost and found, we need that message. It's either both of those things are really important. Righteousness and mercy are both really important. We need to keep them in balance. And when they're not. So we'll talk about that this Sunday and the sermon, and next week in the podcast.
That's right. Sounds good. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We always appreciate you guys regularly tuning in and listening to us talk back and forth about what we've preached or what Dave preached on, and our random sports thoughts and stuff like that. We just are thankful that you guys are here with us, and just want to say thank you. But also, if you guys have any questions, concerns, things that you've been thinking of as you've been listening to us, drop it in the comments section below on the Facebook, on the YouTube. We'd love to have that interaction. But without further ado, Dave, you got anything to add here at the end?
I'll just mention that, we are also in this period of Lent have this thing called 40 Days of Sharing that's been going on. And we only got a couple more weeks left in it, but the generosity of people in response to that has been great. But know that we are collecting items and things. We're sponsoring some houses over in Kenya for widows. That's been really going well. This week we heard about a cat ministry that we have here, and finding stray cats and having them neutered and then rehomed and stuff. And so collecting cat food to help with that. Goshen Valley, we got a work day coming up for that.
April 12th.
And then collecting things for like Kits for Kids and VBS and all of that. That's all ongoing, and you can find that list in many places, including our church website or on social media. And so let's finish strong with that. We've been doing good. Let's finish strong.
Last couple of weeks.
And so, but anyway, with that, I'm good. God bless everybody.
Guys, you take care.
Yeah.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.